In the Warring States period, there was a great struggle in the world. At this moment, a great empire is about to be established, and this empire is also in danger. In this vast world, Qin Gongzi stood tall and shouted, "I want this great Qin for eternity." Keywords of the novel. I want to do Qin 2 without pop-ups, I want to download the complete set of Qin 2's TXT, and I want to do the latest chapter reading of Qin 2. Chapter 1. Gongzi Gao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Gongzi Gao in the 9th year of King Qin's reign. In Yongqing, the ancestral land of the Qin state, in the Qinian Palace, the imperial physician came and went back and forth. After a great chaos, the world remained silent, with only people coming and going here. Here, a king awakens, his steadfast steps will break the existing pattern in the peace dreams of the kings of the 6 kingdoms of Shandong. He will lead his army, his country, and forge the only path in the world. History will remember today, as well as the chaos in the Qinian Palace. In the evening, it started raining in the Qinian Palace, as if the heavens couldn't bear to see the slaughter today. They wanted to wash the bloodstains on the floor with heavenly water and wash away the shame of today for the great Qin. The heavy rain dripped on the tiles, making a crisp sound. However, in the hearts of a group of imperial physicians, it was shrouded in dark clouds and uneasy. Just finished dealing with some things, Xianyang Wangcheng walked quickly, and Xiao Gao followed closely behind, with a nervous expression on his face. "Xiao Gao, what's the situation with Gongzi Gao?" Xianyang Wangcheng's face showed a rare hint of nervousness. "Your Majesty, the 3rd young master is unconscious." The imperial physician said, "There is a strange poison from Lulan on the assassin's sword. Although it has been detoxified, life and death are uncertain." When Xiao Gao said these words, his face was full of anxiety. In the rest of his sight, the face of the king of Qin became pitch black, and a sense of solemnity quietly arrived. At this moment, the imperial physician ordered that whether it was the strange poison of Lulan or the strange poison of Yuesher, the young master Gao must not have any trouble. The Qin king's political will was resolute. No. Standing outside the Qinian Palace, Prince Zheng of Qin's face regained calmness, but his heart was constantly reflecting the scene of lightning, fire, and stones above the coronal ceremony. The assassin leaped up and his long sword shot fiercely towards him. He could see the ferocity on the assassin's face, as well as the fear on the faces of Fu Su and others, as well as the young figures rushing out. The Qin king was well aware that if it weren't for this, Ying Gao would suddenly burst out and be lying on the bed, with his life and death unknown. It can be said that Ying Gao received it for him. At this moment, in the heart of King Zheng of Qin, he was still shocked. Born among the royal family, she was a child of quality. When she was young, the Empress Dowager indulged in debauchery with AI, and her father fell in love with her. So much so that Xianyang Wangcheng had become desperate for family affection. But Ying Gao rushed towards the assassin regardless of everything. When the long sword pierced the young body, Xianyang Wangcheng's heart was shaken, and his originally cold heart melted slightly. "I have seen the king for thousands of years. When I saw King Zheng of Qin, a group of imperial physicians saluted solemnly. Su Che, tell Gu, how likely is Ying Gao to wake up?" After all, Xianyang Wangcheng was Xianyang Wangcheng, and reason overwhelmed emotions at this moment. He knew that the imperial physicians of the great Qin were the best doctors of his time. Although he was the king of the great Qin, he could only rely on these imperial physicians in his profession. "Your Highness, I have already done what I need to do. Whether the 3rd young master can wake up depends on whether he has a strong will to survive and the blessings of heaven." Su Che was also helpless. The poison on the assassin's sword was extremely fierce, and the young master was only 6 years old, too young to resist. Clearing the poison is already all he can do. Upon hearing this, King Zheng of Qin fell silent for a moment and said decisively, "Young Master Gao, please stay at the Qinian Palace. You can choose the medicinal herbs from Xianyang. There is only one request, and that is to wake up in Gao. I will do my best. Xianyang Wangcheng gave a warning and walked into the Qinian Palace. Looking at Ying Gao, who had a pale face and an uncertain life or death, he remained silent for a long time before turning around and leaving. Qinian Palace is just the beginning of his journey towards becoming the #1 person in the world, and the rebellion of AI must be dealt with immediately. Today's Daqin needs him to stabilize. He cannot stay in the Qinian Palace for a long time. In the palace, black is the main tone, rough yet exquisite, giving people a strong momentum that engulfs mountains and rivers. At this moment, the palace was quiet, and even if a needle fell, it could be heard clearly. The boy on the bed struggled his eyelids a few times and slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the ceiling above the palace, his eyes filled with confusion, followed by shock. Jun was stunned. Integrating memories, he naturally understood what the body he had taken away was called. Ying Gao. The third son of Emperor Shi. The Great Qin Empire, young Master Gao. During that era, Jun was a researcher in the dynastic history of the Qin dynasty, and he could almost be said to have a clear understanding of the events within the Great Qin Empire. He naturally has a clear understanding of Ying Gao's life. Gongzi Gao, the Ying surname is Qin. The son of Emperor Qin Shi Huang Yingzheng, after Hu Hai seized the throne, Gongzi Gao wanted to flee, but was afraid that Zhao Gao would execute his entire clan after fleeing. So Gongzi Gao sacrificed himself and requested to be buried for the first emperor at the foot of Mount Li. Qin Tu and Zhao Gao were very happy and gave a generous burial of 100,000 yuan, which saved the young Master Gao's family. As a researcher of the Qin dynasty's dynastic history, Jun naturally had a great longing for the mysterious Great Qin. I feel sorrow for the end of the Great Qin Empire, and I am somewhat indignant about Hu Hai and Fusu. The majestic Great Qin, surprisingly, only existed for 15 years before falling apart. This is also the reason why Jun often went to Lishan Mountain to visit the terracotta warriors. He just wanted to feel the invincibility of the Qin army. When he was visiting the terracotta warriors, a little girl fell into the terracotta warriors' pit. In order to save people, he was killed by a terracotta warriors. Gongzi Gao, in this lifetime, I, Jun, will live for you and guard the majestic Qin. At this moment, Jun's heart was filled with a firm belief. Due to his carefree past life, he devoted his entire life to the history of the Qin dynasty. At this moment, when he seized the title of Gongzi Gao, Jun did not panic in his heart, but rather felt a hint of excitement. This time, he will no longer be studying, but personally witnessing this miraculous era and this mysterious empire. At this moment, becoming the young master of the Great Qin, Jun has great honor in his heart. This is an era of drastic changes, characterized by the collapse of etiquette and music, the roaring of war and thunder, the high shore being the valley, and the deep valley being the tomb. Similarly, this is also an era of great destruction, great creation, great decline, and great rise and fall. As a researcher of the dynastic history of the Qin dynasty, Jun is even more aware that this is a world of great struggle where there is blood and determination. This is also the collapse of an old system, the destruction of old culture, the birth of a new system, and the formation of a new unified ideology that has influenced China for over 2,000 years. At this moment, Jun calmly accepted the fact that he was Ying Gao. He believes that in this lifetime, he will use all his strength, including life, to protect this powerful country. Even if it's changing the course of history, even if it's killing people like wildfire. For the sake of the Great Qin, Ying Gao is willing to spare no effort. Although he was not valued by Emperor Qin Shi Huang, and his mother was a palace maid, and also a palace maid sent to the palace by Marquis Wen Xian, Ying Gao had enough confidence to change everything in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Bitter Medicine, Desolate Qinian Palace. Seeking Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Bitter Medicine, desolate Qinian Palace. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation, the coronation ceremony is over. The Qin king's political support includes the ancestor Mu Gongjian, as well as the Qin king's seal and military symbols submitted by various parties. At the same time, LV Bue walked to the middle of the main hall and bowed solemnly to the Qin king Zheng, saying, "Old minister, please go to the name of Zhongfu, and return it to the Prince Zheng." Upon hearing this, King Zheng of Qin glanced at LV Bue, and his eyes flickered with joy. His expression remained unchanged, and he said, "If something unexpected happens to me, please give me some guidance." Qin Wangcheng did not hesitate, nor did he give anyone else room to think. He nodded in agreement. This is his power. From then on, Qin Wangcheng served as a puppet Qin Wang for 8 years, finally touching the supreme power of the great Qin, taking life and death in his hands. Suppressing the anger in his heart, King Zheng of Qin glanced at his courtiers and casually said, "Zhao Gao, declare the prince's letter of priest." "No." With a nod of agreement, Zhao Gao opened the silk thread on the Wang shoe in his hand and slowly unfolded it, like a painting depicting fame, fortune, and wealth. No one present knew that this was not just a reward, but also a magnificent picture of the empire. Qin King's Edict. Marquis Wenxin, LV Bue, granted a fiefdom of hundreds of miles and still led the prime minister in charge of the country's affairs. The rest of the fiefdoms, ministers, and generals, as well as those who made contributions to quelling the rebellion of Yai, were given the discretion of Marquis Wenxin to grant land titles and titles. All the palace attendants who participated in the war were promoted to the rank of military merit rank 1. Wang was promoted to the rank of chief historian and was in charge of the affairs of the royal city. Meng Tian was promoted to the rank of Xianyang commandant and concurrently in charge of the military and political affairs of the capital city. Wang Jian was promoted to the rank of former general and served as the deputy general in charge of military affairs at the Lantian camp of the general administration. His attendant, Zhao Gao, entered the Shaofu and was in charge of the royal treasury. At this moment, the courtiers admired and acknowledged the rewards bestowed upon them by the Qin king, who was known for his intelligence. Only LV Bue frowned faintly, he could feel the strength of the Qin king's hand. Surprisingly, it quelled the instability caused by the plague in one fell swoop, and made the courtiers identify with the young king of Qin. It was truly remarkable. The king of Qin truly had a unique gaze and astonishing keen observation ability. In an instant, LV Bue had a feeling that this king was truly a heavenly gift. But now that the king of Qin has been crowned, he is already a hungry wolf out of the cage. Even the Marquis of Wenxin, LV Bue, cannot resist the ferocity of this wolf. From this moment on, the fate of the Qin will move towards an unknown and reach an ultimate brilliance. Meng Tian, lead the army to lead the way, and all the civil and military officials will return to the prince city of Xianyang overnight. Qin Wangcheng's gaze was deep, and he suddenly ordered. No. After the reward was granted, Prince Zheng of Qin left the Qinian Palace without stopping and went to the Xianyang prince city overnight. Today, there is still a big mess waiting for him to handle in the great Qin. The vast crowd left, and the desolate Qinian Palace once again fell silent. The entire Qinian Palace was left with only a few palace maids and attendants, including the imperial physician Su Che, Empress Dowager Zhao Ji, and the third prince in Gao. Unfortunately, the two masters of the Qinian Palace, one imprisoned in the Ying Palace and the other lying on a bed. Such prepared the medicine and handed it to the palace maid, Green Lotus. He carefully advised and said, "Feed the third young master, be careful during the process." No. Green Lotus walked into the palace, holding a medicine bowl with a nervous expression, and arrived at Gao's bed. Gao and Green Lotus looked at each other with 4 eyes. For a moment, both of them were surprised and there was no sound for a while. After a long time, the Green Lotus slowly said, "Third young master, are you awake?" Green Lotus has a good impression of Gao. This kind of favoritism has nothing to do with identity, just because Ying Gao rushed forward and saved the king of Daqin. At this time, the reverence of the people of Old Qin towards the king of Qin can be said to be extremely deep. In the Great Qin, throughout the country, the king of Qin is like a god. With a slight nod, Ying Gao looked at the green lotus, but for a moment, he didn't know how to speak and just looked at it without saying anything. Third young master, I'm going to invite Dr. Su now. A hint of excitement surged on Green Lotus's pretty face as she placed the medicine bowl on her desk and turned to leave. At this point, Ying Gao's fervent passion had completely dissipated. He knew that at this moment, the most important thing to do was to strive to survive. Otherwise, everything will become a bubble. So, Ying Gao did not stop Green Lotus from going to see Dr. Su. In this era, medical care was not well developed, and the imperial physicians of the Great Qin dynasty almost represented the highest level of medical care in this era. In order to survive, Ying Gao can only trust these experts. Upon receiving the news from the Green Lotus, Su Che was greatly surprised and exclaimed for the protection of the heavens. He kept walking towards Ying Gao's sleeping palace. San Gongzi, do you feel any discomfort in your body? Su Che's eyes sparkled with joy, confusion, and even more questions. I feel incredibly weak, nothing else. At this moment, for the sake of his own safety, Ying Gao chose to be honest. San Gongzi's poisoning is too deep, and the process of detoxification is already a process of greatly damaging the vitality. It is normal for Gongzi to feel weak. Such felt a little pleased in his heart. He knew that Ying Gao's life had been saved, and his life had also been saved. Green Lotus, feed the young master the medicine. Su Che gave instructions to Green Lotus and then advised Ying Gao, young master, your vitality is greatly damaged. Please rest carefully. Ying Gao looked at Su Che, feeling low on energy, and said, thank you, Dr. Su, for your trouble. This is my duty, young master, don't worry. Su Che was in a good mood and left Ying Gao's dormitory, intending to take a nap and rest well. Too many things happened during the day, which made Su Che physically and mentally exhausted. Ying Gao's life and death were uncertain, and when he was unconscious, his heart was tense with a string. Now that Ying Gao woke up, he only felt weak and had no other bad symptoms, which made Su Che feel at ease. It's so bitter. Feeling the pervasive bitterness in his mouth, Ying Gao frowned heavily, even wrinkling his forehead. Young master, only by taking medicine can we recover as soon as possible and return to the Xianyang King's city. Green Lotus gently comforted, as if coaxing a child. What's your name? Still filled with bitterness in his mouth, Ying Gao looked at the Green Lotus and said. Master Hui, my humble name is Green Lotus. The Green Lotus is like water in the autumn pupils, with a faint glint passing by. Green Lotus, right. Ying Gao remained silent for a long time, until he finished drinking half a bowl of pitch-black liquid together, and then said to the Green Lotus, what kind of medicine is this? Green Lotus, go fetch a bowl of water, this medicine is too bitter. Ying Gao didn't wait for Green Lotus to answer, so he nuzzled his mouth. No. With a nod of agreement, Green Lotus stood up and brought the water already prepared on the long table, carefully feeding Ying Gao spoonfuls by spoonfuls. Newcomers seeking recommendation, collection, and attention for new books, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Su Taiyi's Guidance on Collection and Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Su Taiyi's Guidance on Collection and Recommendation. King Qin's policies are swift and resolute. On the day after entering Xianyang, the king of Qin dispatched the grand historian Wang to invite Marquis Wenxin, LV Bouet, to summon the court captains, bandits, constitutional thieves, imperial censors, prison wardens, and officials in charge of law enforcement. The state of Qin has strict laws and regulations, and any crime has always been convicted according to law. There has never been a resolution of the court. However, since Liu Bui's regency, the foundation of Qin's laws has been shaken. Unexpectedly, it planted an impression on the court and the people of the great Qin dynasty that the punishment could be severe and lenient. Now that the king of Qin has summoned the ministers of law enforcement, for a while, the courtiers cannot touch the thoughts of the king of Qin's administration. For a moment, the courtiers felt uneasy and looked at each other, unwilling to speak first. Faced with the sharp gaze of the king of Qin, the old captain arched his hand and said, "I dare to ask, Your Highness, Prime Minister. Is this case to be punished in accordance with the law or to receive lenient punishment outside the law?" "That's exactly what I mean." At the same time, several ministers spoke in unison. "What do Marquis Wen Xian have to say?" Qian Wangcheng's gaze was deep and he glanced at Liu Bui, who was sitting calmly, and said, "State-owned laws and regulations, we should abide by them." Liu Bui kowtowed to the long case with a straight face, paused word by word, and said, "The only one who worries about me is the Empress Dowager." This matter was raised by Liu Bui, and the courtiers couldn't help but turn their attention to the Qin Wangcheng. After all, the matter involved the Empress Dowager, and as a vassal, it was inevitable to be constrained. Pop. As he slapped the king's case, Qin Wangcheng's expression was icy cold. He looked at the courtiers and paused word by word, saying, "Since all the ministers have doubts, today I will warn everyone. From today on, regardless of the size of the case, regardless of anyone involved, all decisions will be made in accordance with the law. The king is wise, and I am waiting for your orders." The captain and others were delighted and quickly agreed. The Qin law deeply ingrained in people's hearts, and these officials were somewhat dissatisfied with Liu Bui's actions. Without even glancing at the courtiers, Qin Wangcheng had a cold expression on his face and kowtowed to the king's case, saying, "It is a shame for Qin's rule of law to plan rebellion. If everything is done according to Qin's law, how can this Liao enter the palace with the body of an eunuch? My king's decision. 6 officials will gather together, with the court captain's office as the main body. No one is allowed to interfere. Within 2 months, the investigation and trial of this case will be completed without any errors." No. In Xianyang, due to the thunderous atmosphere of the Qin king's administration, a wind of repression swept through. For a moment, everyone was in danger and became alert. However, in the Qinian Palace, Ying Gao only had to take medicine for a day until 7 days later. 7 days later, Ying Gao finally got off the bed and walked in the desolate Qinian Palace supported by green lotus, breathing fresh air and getting better soon. After all, staying there all the time, even a good person would be deposed. Moreover, Ying Gao is still a young man who has just been detoxified and has a weak body. At this moment, he can only strive for self-improvement and rely on himself. Congratulations to third young master, you have finally made it through. Su Che looked at Ying Gao, whose face was still pale but had a hint of popularity, and bowed before him. "Dr. Su doesn't need to be polite, sit down and talk." Ying Gao gestured for Green Lotus to help him over, and the two of them sat down in the pavilion. Although only 6 years old, Ying Gao is very tall. At first glance, if he is not clear about his age, he may mistake it for an 8 or 9-year-old child. Moreover, the depth that occasionally appeared in Ying Gao's eyes prevented Su Che from treating him solely as a child. "Dr. Su, tell me the truth, how is my physical condition?" Ying Gao looked straight at Su Che, paused word by word, and said, "How long can I still live?" The meaning of how long Ying Gao can live is completely different, and the plan he will deploy is also different. Upon hearing this, Su Che's mouth curved upwards and he said, "Don't worry, third young master. The poison has been detoxified. As long as young master diligently cultivates himself, there will be no problem. It's just that the poisoning is too deep. Even if it has been detoxified, there may be piercing pain between the bones in cloudy and rainy weather. This is just my guess." Perhaps this is my fate, Ying Gao. Dr. Su doesn't need to blame himself, I know you've done your best. Su Che advised, and Ying Gao's face looked a bit unpleasant. After all, 1 moment ago, he was ambitious and thought that infinite beauty was waiting for him. The next moment, bad news came and the sky collapsed in an instant. Third young master, there's no need to be so disheartened. Now, young master is only 6.5 years old, which is the age at which everything is possible. It's not certain that he will return to normal. Su Che sighed in his heart. After 7 days of living together day and night, he had gained some understanding of this third young master. He was very strong. It's just that fate is too unfair to Ying Gao. This Lulan Qi poison, even after being detoxified, will still leave a root cause, but the severity of this root cause varies from person to person. For a child only 6.5 years old, this is simply a disaster. Su Che could feel the sadness hidden under the innocent smile. He knew that there were some things that Ying Gao understood, he also understood, and Green Lotus also understood. They know each other by heart. Young master, it's just a serious injury caused by poisoning that may not give him a chance to recover, but it requires his perseverance and luck. Su Che has no children or grandchildren, and his daily interactions in the past few days have made him develop a slight liking for Ying Gao. He pondered for a long time and couldn't help but mention it. No matter how advanced the elderly are, they cannot help but envy the joy of family. Upon hearing this, Ying Gao's eyes lit up with a brilliant light. In that moment it was almost terrifying. Ying Gao dares to ask Dr. Su for guidance. This kindness will never be forgotten by Ying Gao for a lifetime. Su Che's eyelids opened and closed, paused for a moment, chuckled lightly, and said, in today's world, most generals have amazing strength, and they are invincible and invincible. This is not innate, but acquired through secret techniques to polish, refine muscles and bones, nourish blood and qi, and achieve the enhancement of military strength. If the young master is polished with this secret method, he may not be able to make up for his shortcomings, but the process is difficult and extremely painful. This kind of secret technique is the foundation of a general's family. Even if the young master obtains his identity, it may be difficult to obtain it. Ying Gao's gaze was deep and he understood what Su Che said, which was that martial artists need to refine their bodies. Among them, there are prescriptions and special steps. Although one cannot develop internal strength, it can comprehensively enhance a person's strength. Taking a light sip of the tea, Ying Gao suddenly lifted his head, and the excitement and heat in his eyes turned into madness in an instant. I don't know, Dr. Su, can you tell me which secret method in the state of Qin is suitable for me? The great Qin dynasty was founded by martial arts, with many military aristocratic families. There were almost all such inheritance secrets, but Ying Gao knew that there was only one chance. He must find the most suitable one. Su Che had already said too much, and at this moment, he had no hesitation. He remained silent for a long time and said to Ying Gao, in today's world, there are signs of great prosperity for the Wang and Meng families. Young master, please seek the best. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. I want to be the most dazzling and bright young man in Xianyang Wangcheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 5. Ying Gao ascends the door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Ying Gao ascends the door. Fushu worshipped the Meng family, while General Lu worshipped the Sima family, while Ying Gao worshipped the Wang family. Among them, Meng's is the best, followed by Wang's, and Sima's is even less. Similarly, this is also the ranking of the three of them in the mind of King Qinzheng, so obvious yet distinctly distinct. Qin Wangzheng's arrangement of the three oldest young masters fully demonstrates his personal preferences. If it weren't for Ying Gao saving him in the Qinian Palace, this choice would definitely not have been Wang Jian and his son. This arrangement is only a form of attraction and balance, but the king of Qin believed that his courtiers were absolutely loyal to him. The biggest reason for the arrangement of the Qin royal government is that the Great Qin established the country through military power, and in each period, there were one or two extremely eye-catching military generals in the public office. Although Qin Wangcheng did not establish a queen, his cultivation and emphasis on Fusu were definitely incomparable to others. Ying Gao knew that King Zheng of Qin only wanted to support Su Qingkai, because he had always wanted to establish a legitimate leader. After all, in the future, Meng Tian will hold a 300,000-strong army in the northern region, and if there are any variables, Fu Su can take the lead. Not to mention, Meng Yi will be the magistrate of the Great Qin Empire, accompanying the first emperor year-round. The Hmong brothers, with both literary and martial arts skills, can become powerful arms for Fushu. Hey! Sighing in his heart for a lifetime, Ying Gao knew that his path was still far away and had just begun. After leaving the study, Ying Gao went straight to his dormitory. Xianyang Palace. Due to the fact that both Fushu and Ying Gao were still young, they lived in the harem. Due to digesting the memories of the original owner, Ying Gao is relatively familiar with Xianyang Palace. Moreover, the king of Qin has only seen him a few times, so he doesn't need to disguise himself at all. He is Ying Gao, the third son of the current king of Qin. Young master, you have calculated it. The green lotus has been waiting in the palace for a long time, eager to see through. She was unfamiliar with the place here, and for a moment, she felt quite at a loss. As soon as Green Lotus spoke, the maid's face in Xianyang Palace turned pale. However, due to Green Lotus's identity, no one dared to attack on the spot. Green Lotus. With a slight nod, Ying Gao glanced at the palace maids and attendants waiting at the entrance of the dormitory and said, "From today on, you will be the first among the palace maids in Xianyang Palace." "No. Change my clothes, find a white outfit, tidy up." Ying Gao glanced at the palace with black as the main tone, frowned slightly, and said, "No. At present, Duchin is still black, but black is not the only color. Ying Gao wants to change into white clothes, firstly for the convenience of entering Wang Jian's mansion, and secondly for his passion for white clothes. The current Great Qin is an open and inclusive one, so as long as it is not a rebellion and regicide against the Qin law, it will almost always be tolerated." After washing up, Ying Gao changed into a white robe, and his whole body became bright, no longer a dull color. Huang Liangfu, register at the palace gate office and then drive to General Wang Jian's residence. Ying Gao glanced at Xianyang Palace and walked out. "Young master, I'll go now." Huang Liangfu is an exclusive attendant belonging to Ying Gao. He is already a mature person, and his actions are meticulous and cautious, which is what Ying Gao needs at this moment. The carriage was rattling and the horse was galloping. The 3-foot-wide and 3-foot-high chariot drove out of the palace and headed towards Wang Jian's mansion. Along the way, the Qin people walked very fast, almost without stopping, but their faces did not show any signs of urgency, but rather a calm demeanor of the people of a great country. It seems that even if the sky falls, one is not afraid. On the carriage, Ying Gao's gaze was deep. These Chinese people do not find bronze chariots strange, but silently give way. And they make way, but pedestrians move closer to both sides and continue moving forward without stopping. Seeing this, Ying Gao also felt a little emotional. Although the Great Qin dynasty may have had 1,000 flaws, Qin's laws were strict and noble, and the whole country was united in the same law. This has made Qin Fa the lifeline of the old Qin people. "Young master, General Wang Jian's residence has arrived." Huang Liangfu restrained the carriage and turned his head to respectfully say to Ying Gao, "Liangfu, knock on the door and hand over the memorial, remember to be more respectful." Ying Gao gestured, he didn't dare to be careless about this trip. He was aware of Wang Jian's caution and taught himself the methods of martial arts and bone polishing. To a certain extent, Wang Jian was his teacher. At that time, there is a high possibility that they will be bound together and intervene in the dispute for succession. With Wang Jian's caution, it would be a huge trouble for Ying Gao to come knocking on the door today. And in this era, it was the most open and inclusive warring states period on the land of China. Between rulers and ministers, there are only rulers and ministers, and there is no clear master or servant. Between the two, at most they can be considered as future bosses and employees. Although there is King Qin, Wang Jian can also refuse. Even if Wang Jian refused Ying Gao today, it would not affect his position in the heart of the king of Qin. He knew that at this moment, he was far less prestigious than Wang Jian. No. At this time, Wang Jian had just been highly valued by the king of Qin, and the path of a generation of famous generals had just begun. So, at this moment, Wang Jian's mansion is not grand, only 6 entrances. Ying Gao walked out of the racetrack, took 3 steps in 2, and came behind Liang Fu, waiting for Wang Jian. He knew that when the news spread, with Wang Jian's personality, regardless of whether he had power or status, relying solely on the royal family's children, Wang Jian would not go out to welcome the son of the current king of Qin. As expected, after a brief conversation between Liang Fu and the elders of the Wang family, Wang Jian's figure appeared in front of the door, even his son Wang Ben followed. Wang Jian has seen the 3rd young master. Wang Jian walked out of the mansion and stood still, ready to bow down. Seeing Wang Jian go out, Ying Gao quickly reached out to help him and didn't let him bow down. "General, Ying Gao is dressed in white, don't bow. Today I came to the door and asked Ying Gao for something. Can you please accept it, General?" Ying Gao knew in his heart that since the king of Qin had already instructed him to learn military skills and methods of polishing muscles and bones from Wang Jian, he must have communicated with Wang Jian. But out of respect for Wang Jian, Ying Gao spoke up and asked, if Wang Jian was unwilling, he would not force it. "San Gongzi, this place is not a place for conversation. How about going to the old man's study to have a conversation?" Wang Jian had a hint of sadness on his face and passed away in a flash. "General, please." At this moment, Ying Gao showed a dignified and composed demeanor that young people never had before. "3rd young master, please." Seeing this scene, a strange color flashed through Wang Jian's eyes. Previously, he had no contact with Ying Gao. If it weren't for Ying Gao's amazing move in the Qinian Palace, I'm afraid the entire Qin dynasty would have forgotten that there is still such a person. However, from today's contact, Wang Jian is clear that this young master is different from ordinary people, and in terms of interpersonal skills, he is not comparable to his peers. At least, his grandson Wang Li is far inferior. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. You and I have no master apprentice fate, seeking collection, seeking recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. You and I have no master apprentice fate, seeking collection, seeking recommendation, Wang Jian study. Wang Jian dismissed the maid and the old man, and in the entire study, only Wang Jian and his son, along with Ying Gao, were present. In the huge study, piles of bamboo slips are placed on the bookshelf. In this era, books are symbols of wealth and status, and Wang Jian's study can be considered luxurious. This is the origin of family, this is the reason for the wealthy and noble families. As far as my gaze could see, on top of the long table, even piled up like a small mountain, there was a small collapse on the side of the table that could only accommodate people, which should be used for rest when tired. "San Gongzi, the mansion is simple, please take your seat." Wang Ben reached out and said to Ying Gao. "Thank you very much." Without hesitation or pushing, Ying Gao knelt down from his nearest position. "I wonder if you have any orders for me, young master." Wang Jian sat down with a calm and composed expression. Ying Gao is only 6.5 years old, so young that Wang Jian is not on much guard. His prudence is partly due to his nature, and partly due to the king of Qin. Upon hearing this, Ying Gao bowed his hand to Wang Jian, as well as to Wang Ben, with a hint of shyness on his face. He paused for a moment and said, "Two generals, to be honest, Ying Gao was assassinated by an assassin in the Qinian Palace and almost died. Although Dr. Su has excellent medical skills, after detoxification, Ying Gao's vitality was severely damaged, his foundation was damaged, and he was afraid of premature death. Dr. Su said, if we use special secret techniques to polish our muscles and bones, perhaps we can make up for the foundation." After entering Xianyang, Ying Gao mentioned to his father when he saw him that his father intended to let Ying Gao worship under the general's command, learn military skills and repair his foundation. So, after leaving Xianyang Palace, Ying Gao went directly to the general's mansion and came to consult with the general. After all, these inheritance secrets are priceless. It is a capital inherited by a family. If it is inconvenient for the general to impart it, he can also operate calmly before the king's order is issued, so as not to make the general difficult after the king's order is issued. From the moment Ying Gao spoke, Wang Jian's father and son's expressions remained solemn without any relaxation. It wasn't until Ying Gao uttered his last sentence that their expressions softened slightly. With a straight and sharp gaze, Ying Gao looked at Wang Jian. With a moment of determination, he turned to Wang Jian and said, "Before Ying Gao left, Father Wang once said, 'Let the elder brother worship the Meng family, and the middle brother worship the Sima family.'" Ha! Taking a deep breath, Wang Jian took a deep look at Ying Gao. Just now, Ying Gao's performance was as if he had experienced countless worldly affairs and conspired with others. His words are both comfortable to listen to and subconsciously accepted. Especially when Wang Jian thought of Ying Gao, who was only 6.5 years old at this moment, his heart couldn't help but be shocked. At the age of 6.5, the young king of Qin, who was once appointed as the crown prince, was probably just like that. San Gongzi, since it is Wang's order, Wang Jian naturally will not disobey. However, the Wang family has ancestral teachings and cannot participate in royal affairs. Wang Jian did not treat Ying Gao as a 6-year-old child, but spoke frankly, saying, "The art of polishing muscles and bones, even my military skills, can be taught to the young master. But there is no master-apprentice relationship between us, nor is there a master-apprentice status between us. Young master, you can stay in the mansion for a while. After completing your studies and becoming a disciple, the fate between you and me will be decided by ourselves." Undoubtedly, they are the cautious Wang Jian. Only when the Wang family is studying, they are the masters and disciples. This means that once Ying Gao steps out of the Wang family, he will not be able to borrow any of Wang Jian's power. Nodding slightly, Ying Gao arched his hand at Wang Jian and said, "Everything will be arranged by the general." Ying Gao has no objections. After speaking, Ying Gao stood up from behind the long table, picked up a cup of tea, and bowed solemnly to Wang Jian, saying, "Teacher Wang, please have some tea." When Ying Gao and his companions entered the three mansions, news kept flowing into the study of the king of Qin. "Your Majesty, the contemporary head of the Sima family has accepted the second young master and declared him as his own disciple." Zhao Gao looked inexplicable and respectfully reported to the king of Qin one by one. Sima Gong's acceptance of Jianglu is also considered the fate of Jianglu. The king of Qin sighed lightly, put down his bamboo slips, looked up, and said, "How about Fusu and Ying Gao?" Compared to Jianglu, the king of Qin valued Fu Su and Ying Gao more. He remembered that Fu Su only nodded in agreement, while Ying Gao was full of energy and threatened to be the most dazzling and bright young man in the Xianyang royal city. Moreover, both Wang Jian and Meng Tian had great talents, and he was bound to be highly valued. Therefore, the king of Qin naturally wanted to know the outcome. Upon hearing this, Zhao Gao hesitated for a moment and said, "Your Highness, it's okay with the young master. Although Meng Tian hasn't received it yet, he has been worshipped by General Meng Wu. Meng Tian and Meng Yi are considered martial brothers. However, General Wang Jian suggested that the third prince move into the royal mansion. In the Wang mansion, whether it's the method of polishing bones and muscles or military skills, he will teach each other with all his might. However, when the third young master learns and starts his apprenticeship, their master-apprentice relationship will be cut off on its own. General Wang Jian, frankly say that the third young master has no connection with him as a master or disciple. Wang Jian is still as cautious as ever, and so is Meng Tian. Qin Wang raised his lips and turned his gaze, saying, "Young Master Gao, have you agreed?" San Gongzi agreed, offered tea to General Wang Jian, and then said, "Everything is in the general's opinion, he has no objection." Ha! With a smile, the king of Qin shook his head and said, "In the city of Xianyang, the younger generation not only have the sons of the great Qin, but also the descendants of the major generals and civil servants. Wang Ben's son, Meng Tian, Meng Yi's son, Li Si's son, Feng Jie's son, Wang Wan's son, almost every one of them is blessed. It's very difficult to become the most dazzling and bright young man in Xianyang King City." Although Ying was a king of his generation, he was also a father who had a desire for his son to become a dragon and his daughter to become a phoenix. He did not reprimand Ying Gao for his ambitious spirit, but instead felt hopeful. After all, in his eyes, his son should be the most dazzling and bright young man in this Xianyang royal city, even on the entire land of the Central Plains. With a flickering thought in his heart, the king of Qin said, "Zhao Gao, isn't Gongzi Gao bringing back a palace made from the Qinian Palace? Let her go to Wang Jian's mansion to take care of Gongzi Gao. At the same time, tell Wang Jian that you don't have to worry about me, just practice as you want." "No." With a nod of agreement, Zhao Gao paused for a moment and whispered to the king of Qin, "Your Majesty, the third prince is staying in the Wang family. The second prince and the eldest prince are. There's no need to force them, especially Fushu, his teacher is not just Meng Wu." King Qin's political vision was burning with flames, and he had long been trained in Fusu. Moreover, the teacher team in Fusu has a very strong lineup. It can be said that there are hundreds of schools of thought, and as long as they are useful for governing the country, they are all among them. Received signing SMS, feel free to bookmark, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. First encounter with Wang Li, seeking collection and recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. First encounter with Wang Li, seeking collection and recommendation. Wang Ben, instruct the family to prepare guest rooms and arrange for the third young master to stay. Wang Jian waved his hand and gestured for the two to leave. "No." With a nod of agreement, Wang Ben stood up from behind the long case and reached out his hand, saying, "Third young master, please." Ying Gao stood up calmly and arched his hand at Wang Jian. After nodding, he walked towards Wang Ben and said, "Uncle Wang doesn't need to be so bound by etiquette. Just call me Qin Gao. After all, I live in the mansion for a long time as a scholar, not a young master." "Ha!" With Ying Gao's words spoken, Wang Jian nodded, and Wang Ben's eyes lit up. His impression of Ying Gao improved a bit. Since the young master said so, then Wang Ben has exceeded the limit. Ying Gao was helpless. In the great Qin dynasty, he also couldn't understand some things. For example, in history, Hu Hai of Fushu was surnamed Zhao of Ying, while he and General Lu were surnamed Qin of Ying. The surname changes as it is passed down, and remains unchanged for millions of years. Although there is a saying that the Qin and Zhao families share the same origin, the clan is a reflection of the social status of the family. When the family's status is elevated, a new clan can be established. Although Qin's ancestors rose slightly later than Zhao's, they can be said to have caught up from behind. The ancestor of Qin, Fizi, was appreciated by King Xiao Wang of Zhou for his skill in raising horses and was granted the fiefdom of Qin, becoming the first ruler of the state of Qin. During the reign of Duke Xiang of Qin during the spring and autumn period, the state of Qin was officially designated as a vassal state, while a branch of Zhao was not officially designated as a vassal state until the Warring States period. Zhao can be said to be far less glorious than Qin. In the pre-Qin era, the most noble was the monarch, who did not need a surname to display nobility. The funniest thing is that they are all descendants of Prince Qin. Although they have one father and multiple mothers, the Zhao family from Fushu and the Qin family from Ying make it seem absurd. Unless these young masters all have fiefs. However, Ying was aware that from beginning to end, the royal princes of the first emperor's dynasty did not have any fiefs. Even if it's a false seal. After all, in the Great Qin Empire, there are no military achievements that are not awarded. Many young masters of the Great Qin, except for Fu Su, have never been to the battlefield. And Fu Su doesn't need to be in theft, the whole world belongs to him. So, the young masters of the Great Qin dynasty did not have any fiefdoms, so it is impossible for them to have different surnames. However, compared to Zhao, Ying prefers Qin. After all, there was already a Zhao Gao in the Great Qin dynasty, who was a descendant of the Qin emperor and could not have the same name or surname as a eunuch. So, he usually calls himself Ying or Qin Gao. Thoughts flickered in his heart, and Ying could only sigh. Hegel's famous saying. Existence is reason. Having checked into the royal mansion, Ying was strolling cautiously in the courtyard. He needs to understand the simplest arrangements in the royal mansion. After all, he needs to live in it and cannot be too troublesome for Wang Jian. The most important thing is to rely on himself. At the stone entrance leading to the main courtyard garden, a big black dog guarded the threshold and snored solidly in the scorching summer sun, with its narrow eyes flickering only at the wanderers. At the end of May, it is the busiest time of the year for agriculture and also the hottest weather. The summer wind blew by, and the leaves rustled. Ying walked briskly to the stone gate and smiled, saying, "There's actually a dog. What a fierce evil energy." Ying felt a fierce aura from this black dog, and his footsteps couldn't help but pause. He didn't think he had ever done such a fierce dog at this moment. Even a dog bullies me, I can't live these days anymore. Ying glanced at the big black dog and muttered to himself before wandering around the yard again. "Are you Gongzi Gao?" Just as Ying was blocked by the big black dog and was about to turn back, an 11 or 12-year-old boy walked out of the stone gate, his eyes full of exploration. Nodding, Ying naturally knew that he could appear at Wang Jian's mansion, and it was highly likely that he was Wang Li. "Are you the son of General Wang, Wang Li?" The two of them stared at each other with big eyes, and it was considered that they had met. Wang Li was 11 or 12 years old, which was the most fun time for the boy. His eyes rolled and he said, "Gao, are you planning to go to the backyard? I can take you inside. He dare not bite me." "Li, the backyard is an inner residence, and as an outsider, it's inconvenient for me to enter." Ying shook his head, knowing that generally speaking, the backyard is located at the last entrance. "Gao, you've thought too much. The backyard is where I practice martial arts, and no one lives there." After hesitating for a moment, Ying nodded and said, "Let's go. I just wanted to see my brother's martial arts skills." For Ying he naturally wanted to establish a good relationship with Wang Li. After all, Ying was alone and had no foundation in the Qin dynasty. And Wang Li, you can slowly plot it. Wang Jian's mansion is not large, and the last entrance is a small garden on 2 acres of land, next to which stands the bamboo grove courtyard where Ying lives. "Gao, this is the place where martial arts are practiced. Only I can enter the entire Wang family." Wang Li was somewhat proud, and as the eldest grandson of the Wang family, he naturally had a high status. Moreover, aristocratic families like the Wang family have orderly inheritance, and they are even more strict in cultivating their descendants. Within a family, multiple generals can appear. But there will never be multiple handsome talents. Among the entire Wang family, Wang Li is the next handsome talent cultivator. "Brother Li. San Gongzi, young master, today's task sent by the master." The old man greeted Wang Li and his companions at the stone gate, waiting for their arrival. Wang Li took the parchment and waved at the old man, saying, "Old man, please go down, I will tell the third young master." For the elderly, Wang Li dare not be reckless. In a family like the Wang family with orderly inheritance, etiquette is extremely important, and the identity of the elderly is not simple. Even Wang Li dare not take it lightly. Wang Li only remembers when he collided with his family members and was severely punished by his grandfather. The meal of stir-frying bamboo shoots with meat was truly a bloody lesson. Since then, Wang Li has become somewhat afraid of his family and has grown old. "Gao, my grandfather gave you a task to chop the sword 500 times, each time leaving white marks on the tree." Wang Liyang raised the parchment in his hand, his face smiling with a hint of schadenfreude. He came from the age of Ying Gao, naturally aware of the difficulty of splitting the sword 500 times, and Ying Gao's poor physical condition, which he also knew from his father. So, splitting the sword 500 times will make Ying Gao exhausted. "Brotherly, where is the sword? Since the teacher has a task, as a disciple, I should do my best to complete it." Ying Gao's gaze flickered and he shouted to Wang Li. Unlike Wang Li, although Ying Gao appears to be only 6.5 years old on the surface, his age in his heart is already not inferior to Wang Jian. He knows in his heart how chaotic the world will be in the future. Martial arts will be the capital for one's own livelihood. Now Wang Jian plans to give it his all, and Ying Gao naturally enjoys it. Even when Wang Jian allows him to live in the Wang family, he agrees to it all at once. Newcomers and new books are seeking recommendations, collections, and followers. If you like them greatly, you can also add them if you have a book list. This book is currently undergoing signing procedures. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Returned Green Lotus, Seeking Collection, Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Returned Green Lotus, Seeking Collection, Seeking Recommendation. Gao, this is the bamboo sword. Choose a handy one yourself. Wang Li gave Ying Gao a pitiful glance and cautioned with some unease, saying, "Gao, grandfather can't rub sand in his eyes. He can't chop the sword 500 times, even if it's one less time. Don't cheat or play tricks, otherwise my grandfather will definitely be angry. Thank you for Brother Li's warning." Ying Gao wouldn't do such a short-sighted thing. Ying Gao felt a hint of gratitude deep in his eyes, knowing that Wang Li was doing it for his good. However, Ying Gao is at least a mature person, and naturally knows that there is no secret for Wang Jian in this royal mansion. 500 swords may not necessarily be a test. Moreover, Ying Gao understands a truth. Only by enduring hardships can one become a superior person. If he cannot endure hardship, not only will his body be permanently damaged, but it will also disappoint the king of Qin and the Wang family. All these things, if we really calculate them, the gains and losses are not worth the losses. So even if he dies of exhaustion here today, he must chop down these 500 swords. At this moment, Ying Gao took out one of the bamboo swords and went up to the poplar tree in front of him. He aimed at it and struck it with one sword. Bang! With a muffled sound, a tremendous force struck, causing Ying Gao's mouth to ache. For a moment, he couldn't even hold his sword, bamboo, and almost let go. Ha! After adjusting his breathing, Ying Gao adjusted his hands a few times, then aimed and swung out again, so repeated. "Master, the king has sent a palace maid to serve the third prince." The old man walked into the study and reported to Wang Jian with a solemn expression. "Send the person back and also bring a message to the king. There are maids in my palace." No. Wang Jian knew that in order to hone a person, one must work hard and cultivate them from a young age. Now that Ying Gao is 6.5 years old, he must be severely polished. Although he will not accept Ying Gao, Wang Jian will not be stingy. Whenever possible, he also wants to help the Qin shape a powerful young master. As for the future, he cannot think of it at this moment and is unwilling to think about it. At this moment, Wang Jian put down the bamboo slip in his hand, turned around and walked out, standing on a hidden attic. Wang Jian looked at the two sweating youths in the backyard, his mouth curling up. Wang Jian raised Wang Li from a young age, and he knew that Wang Li was just an average talent. To reach the peak, there must be a big opportunity. And opportunities are something that can be encountered but not sought after, even he has no way to start. For Ying Gao, he is not very familiar with his qualifications. Wang Jian understands that this requires long-term observation and also requires Ying Gao's efforts. Looking at Ying Gao, who was still chopping his sword and swaying, Wang Jian instructed his family elder, prepare the medicinal herbs sent by the royal family and hand them over to Wang Ben. Then let Ying Gao practice swordsmanship and go take a medicinal bath. As for Xiao Li, I'll do it myself. No. Cutting the sword 500 times at once is not only a test of willpower for a 6.5-year-old child, but also a great burden on their body. If not properly nurtured, one will inevitably be disabled through training. And Ying Gao may not have achieved success in training, but he must not have failed in training, otherwise he would have been unable to explain to the king of Qin. On the martial arts arena, Ying Gao's forehead was covered in sweat, and he had already swung 495 times. 6 bamboo swords were also cut off. At this moment, he was tightly holding the 7th bamboo sword, his arms trembling, his legs weak, and his breathing was rapid. He has reached his limit. Kill. With a single strike, the bamboo sword fell to the ground. Ying Gao's legs softened and he knelt down, his cheeks flushed, and his clothes soaked in sweat. He felt like he was in a steamer, and occasionally the breeze blew, but he couldn't feel any coolness. Each strike is a complete infusion of Ying Gao's essence, energy, and spirit, with a high level of concentration and extreme control over his strength, which makes Ying Gao physically and mentally exhausted. At this point, Wang Li had already completed the task assigned by Wang Jian and was now by Ying Gao's side, ignoring his eager gaze and saying, "Gao, stand up, you are the descendant of the old Qin people, stand up." Wang Li kept tempting on the side, and when the 3 of the old Qin people appeared, Ying Gao's body seemed to suddenly inject a force, struggling to get up. "Hi, chop the sword quickly. With just 4 swords, today's suffering will come to an end." Holding the bamboo sword, Ying Gao struggled to walk towards him, and at about a distance, Luan Yuan swung out a sword. Pop it. With a single sword, Ying Gao continued to fall. At this moment, old Gao, whose mouth was swollen, could no longer hold the sword. Hooking. With continuous rapid breathing, Ying Gao's eyes flickered with madness as he murmured to himself, "I am the son of the king of Qin, the young master of the great Qin. Kill me." Holding his sword in difficulty, Ying Gao rushed forward as if he had gone crazy and slashed it with one sword. Kill. When Ying Gao swung his 49th sword, Wang Jian's face on the attic changed slightly, and there was a hint of emotion in his eyes. Ying Gao's madness and resilience are far superior to Wang Li, who is 6.5 years old. Moreover, Ying Gao has a firm will and will not give up until he reaches 500 swords. After a moment of contemplation, Wang Jian developed a slight expectation for this unknown 3rd young master. "For the sake of Daqin, I'll kill. Ying Gao let out a roar and swung his long sword, but this time, nothing unexpected happened. Seeing Ying Gao unconscious, Wang Li dragged him over and handed him over to his father Wang Ben. Wang Ben glanced at Wang Li and advised him, "Go to your grandfather's place, leave this to my father." No. Wang Li understands that after every day of training, one must take a medicinal bath, otherwise, the next day they cannot leave the bed and can only slowly recuperate. This is the reason for being poor in literature and rich in martial arts. If you want to polish your muscles and bones, you need a unique secret recipe and a huge supply of unique medicinal herbs. If it weren't for the royal family providing them for Ying Gao, it would be difficult for the royal family to supply them. This is also why every generation of military and martial families only have a few or two people who are exceptionally talented. Take off the clothes of the third young master and put them inside. Wang Benfen gave a warning to his servant and said, "Take care of the third young master at any time, there must be no mistakes." No. Wang Ben was also a busy person, and it was impossible to keep watch over Ying Gao. After preparing the medicinal bath, he left the room. He came to Wang Jian's study, bowed solemnly to him, then stood up and said, "Father, these three young masters have good resilience. If they can make up for their foundation, they may not be a good general. Lear is just a middle-class asset, I'm afraid he can't inherit our mantle." Upon hearing this, Wang Jian's gaze flickered for a moment and he said to Wang Ben in a deep voice, "Now that Prince Qin is in power, the king has not yet established a queen, and the third prince is wise. Growing up in the royal family, that position is the most deadly temptation, and you are also aware of the king's intentions." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Discussion on the study seeking collection and recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Discussion on the study seeking collection and recommendation. Wang Shangji aspires to the 4 seas and wants to integrate the Central Plains into one country. The third young master's early wisdom may not necessarily prevent him from thinking that he shouldn't have given birth. Father. Wang Ben shook his head and retorted to Wang Jian, saying, "Now that King Qin is in his prime, even if that idea arises, nothing will happen. Moreover, as long as it is the heir of the royal family, especially the heir of the current king, it is impossible not to have that idea. That position is like the Central Plains, as long as it is the heir of the king, everyone wants to compete for the deer, and this is not a big mistake." At this point, Wang Ben paused for a moment and said to Wang Jian word by word, "Besides, whether my father accepts the third young master or not, since the third young master entered the mansion, the pattern has been predetermined. Perhaps this was intentional by the king, or perhaps it was just a coincidence, but so what? The king has not yet established a queen, and there is no distinction between legitimate and illegitimate Prince Qin. Tomorrow, bring the third young master over and make a decision for your father." Wang Jian waved his hand and interrupted Wang Ben's words. He was a member of the Wang party and would not easily express his support for anyone. Moreover, as Wang Ben said, the current king of Qin is in his prime. Everything, it's too early. Your Majesty, General Wang Jian has sent the Green Lotus back with a message. There are maids in the Wang family, so we will not mistreat the third young master. Zhao Gao passed on the news he had just received to the king of Qin. Putting down the bamboo slips in his hand, King Zheng of Qin looked at Zhao Gao with a deep gaze and said, "This matter depends on Wang Jian. By the way, how are the three young masters doing?" Although the king of Qin was busy with political affairs, he also knew that the cultivation of Fusu and others was crucial, and this was crucial for his layout. "Your Highness, the eldest and second young masters have begun to study military literature. The third young master is currently in contact with the palace to chop swords. Our people say that the third young master chopped swords 500 times yesterday, which left him exhausted and paralyzed." Upon hearing this, the king of Qin nodded and said, "I understand now, so there's no need to pay attention to them in the future." No. At this time, King Qin had just taken power and his control over the great Qin Empire was still insufficient. There is also a Marquis of Wen Xian, Lv Bue, above the court, and too many things have happened during this period. The Empress Dowager indulged in debauchery and rebelled in the imperial palace, all of which needed to be quickly resolved. Qin Wangjing knew in his heart that he needed to give an explanation to the old Qin people. Such a shocking scandal within the royal family would inevitably undermine the noble status of the royal family among the people. During this period, King Zheng of Qin did not even go to any imperial palace to escape the summer heat, still guarding the city of Xianyang, busy in the study deep in the shade of the trees. At night, the lights often stay on until the fourth shift, and the various government offices in the royal city have resumed their day and night duty with a flow of vehicles and horses. In this situation, Xianyang Wangcheng had no leisure time to pay attention to Ying Gao-san. Of course, although Ying Gao was aware of the historical process, he was powerless and could only sharpen his sword in Wang Jian's small courtyard for 10 years. The next day, Ying Gao woke up slowly and struggled up from the bed, feeling the faint pain in his muscles. His face struggled slightly and he put on the samurai short shirt that had already been prepared on the side of the bed. Then he rinsed himself once, but while rinsing his mouth, Ying Gao suddenly envied those colleagues who traveled through the system or warehouse. He travels through time, naked and without anything. Staying in water and pounding his teeth with his fingers, Ying Gao reluctantly spat out his mouthwash and walked out of the room. It is now the beginning of the great day, and Wang Li and others have been up for a long time. However, yesterday Ying Gao made his first sword strike, and today this is the exception. Ying Gao was basking in the warm sunshine, with a gentle breeze and swaying willows, slowly walking towards the backyard. At this moment, Wang Li's morning exercise had ended and he was walking towards the stone gate. With a glance up, he saw Ying Gao and immediately looked happy. "Gao, go eat." Just as Ying Gao was about to say that he hadn't practiced in the morning yet, he was pulled forward by Wang Li. Along the way, Wang Li said, "You don't need to practice in the morning today. Go eat first, and then my grandfather will come to you and ask you to go to the study after finishing your meal." "Okay." On top of the two small tables, there are the same food, a bowl of meat soup with unknown meat, a pancake, and half a bowl of dishes with unknown origins. But on the other small table, there is an extra pancake and more meat soup. Later generations often emphasized the importance of having 3 meals a day, but during the pre-Qin period, there was a shortage of food and frequent wars, to the extent that people only ate 2 meals in the middle and evening. Only by polishing their bodies like Wang Li and Ying Gao can they achieve the standard of 3 meals a day, which is an extremely luxurious lifestyle. I didn't have dinner yesterday, and at this moment, Ying Gao was already hungry with his chest pressed against his back. Smelling the smell of meat soup, he only felt even more hungry. Gudon with the pancakes, he drank some meat soup and ate half a bowl of vegetables. Ying Gao also felt a hint of fullness and wiped his mouth with a square towel on top of the copper plate. Ying Gao smiled at Wang Li and said, "Brotherly, take your time eating. I'll take a step first and go greet the teacher." "Go ahead, go ahead." At the age of 11 or 12, a half-year-old boy is at a time when he can eat, let alone constantly practicing martial arts, and has a greater thirst for food. In this era, Wang Li had no other concerns, he only wanted to eat and drink enough. Following the bluestone slab, walking for about a quarter of an hour, turning several long corridors and turning a few corners, Ying Gao stood in front of the study door. He knew that this was Wang Jian's study, and the books inside were not like a family of generals, but more like a family of officials. Teacher, Ying Gao came to pay his respects. At the door, Ying Gao bowed solemnly and spoke. "Come in." A majestic voice came, and as Ying Gao pushed the door in, Wang Jian warned, "Close the door and find a place to sit." "No." With a slight nod, Ying Gao turned around and closed the door to his study, then calmly sat down on the side and said, "Teacher, what do you want me to do?" Wang Jian looked straight at Ying Gao and remained silent for a moment before saying, "Your Majesty has instructed third young master to learn how to polish his muscles and bones, as well as military skills and knowledge. It's just that I'm just a martial artist. I came to see you today to determine your learning direction. If I can't teach you, I can explain it to the king." Upon hearing this, Ying Gao's gaze was deep, and he turned around in his heart. Then, he arched his hand at Wang Jian and said, "Students are willing to learn the ability to use force, and at the same time, learn the Qin method." This time, Ying Gao's answer was very clever. Learning military tactics is because Wang Jian is a peerless commander, and in the days to come, war will be the only theme. And the great Qin ruled the country with the law. As an old Qin person and a young master of the great Qin, one must be aware of the Qin law. And only in this way can Ying Gao come into contact with Han Fizi and read one or two of the legalist classics, which are known as the study of emperors. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Wang Jian's question and Ying Gao's answer, seeking collection and recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Wang Jian's question and Ying Gao's answer, seeking collection and recommendation, Han Fizi. For this Korean young master, Ying Gao is very eager. He remembers this period of history clearly, which is now the 9th year of the reign of King Qin. Han Fizi's entry into Qin lasted for 14 years under the reign of King Qin, and there are still 5 years left until now. Perhaps in the past 5 years, he has been writing diligently, leaving behind a treasure of wisdom for the Central Plains. Then, the book that gathers the teachings of Xianyang, the power of prudence, and the technique of Shenbunu has emerged, and the ultimate masterpiece has emerged. When Han Fizi emerged, he was regarded as a legal code by the young and ambitious King Zheng of Qin, and began the great cause of unifying the 6 states. The main idea of Han Fizi was to guide the establishment of the great Qin Empire by the Qin government. So, for the collection of imperial skills like Han Fizi, Ying Gao naturally wanted to bow down. As for the military strategy, the next step will be the process of Qin Wangcheng unifying the world. On the land of the Central Plains, there will be smoke and war raging everywhere. In the great Qin dynasty, the system of military merit titles at the 20th level was fundamental. Although he is a nobleman of the great Qin, in order to make the outstanding people of the great Qin court and even the Central Plains face him, he must use his military achievements to awe the world. So, Ying Gao chose the military path and Qin method. He felt that this was the cornerstone for him to establish himself in the great Qin, even to the point where his cheap father looked at him differently. Only by slowly unfolding the scroll can the world be amazed in the end. The only advantage of Ying Gao is his youth. He can learn a lot, and in the future, he will strike a decisive blow, allowing him to achieve ultimate victory. Upon hearing this, Wang Jian's gaze was deep and he was somewhat surprised by Ying Gao's choice, and he also had some genuine emotions. Third young master, the way of war lies in the battlefield. As a young master of the great Qin dynasty, you are not involved in many matters related to the battlefield. Therefore, I suggest that you consider carefully. Ying Gao knelt and sat on the small table, looking at the tea on the long table. With half a sound, he said, "Teacher, although Gao is noble, he is the son of the king of Qin and the young master of the great Qin. But throughout the dynasties of the great Qin, almost every young master has gone to the battlefield. Duke Xiao joined the army at a young age, while King Wu galloped on the battlefield with few failures. As a descendant of the old Qin people, only the young master of the great Qin should step onto the battlefield and protect this beautiful land for his father and king. Moreover, the man's achievements and fame will soon be obtained, winning the title of Lord of Eternal Marquis." Glancing at Ying Gao in surprise, it was obvious that his answer surprised Wang Jian greatly. He paused for a moment and said, "As for the Qin method, everyone in the great Qin knows it. As a young master of the great Qin dynasty, you should have a good understanding of Qin's laws. However, above Qin's laws, I don't have much expertise." Ying Gao's eyes were blazing with hope, his whole being filled with hope, like a newly rising sun with infinite vitality. He arched his hand at Wang Jian and said, "Qin's law is in people's hearts, teachers don't need to be humble." Upon hearing this, Wang Jian's heart trembled. He did not expect a child who was 6.5 years old and less than 7 years old to say such things. Qin's law is in people's hearts. Taking a deep glance at Ying Gao, Wang Jian's senses for him underwent a complete transformation. For the first time, he felt that Ying Gao was precocious and talented. At this moment, Wang Jian's attitude towards Ying Gao improved a bit, saying, "San Gongzi, generals are skilled in warfare, and the key lies in their swords. I am skilled in snatching. What kind of weapon do you like?" "Halberd." Without hesitation, Ying Gao spoke up. Just in an instant, he regretted it. The bronze halberd of this era, although having some functions as a halberd, is not the Fangtian painted halberd passed down in later generations. A halberd. With a murmur, Wang Jian said, a halberd is a combination of a spear and a spear, that is, a spear tip is installed at the head of the spear. A combat weapon with dual functions of hooking, pecking, and piercing has stronger killing power than both a spear and a spear. This also means that the halberd is extremely demanding in terms of power requirements. After taking a deep breath and seeing Ying Gao's gaze fixed, Wang Jian hesitated for a moment and said, the gravity of the halberd requires one force to descend 10 times. In a month, he will strike the sword 1,000 times. No. Wang Jian does not oppose or support Ying Gao's desire for a halberd, which requires time to verify. Putting down the teacup, Wang Jian spoke in a deep voice and said, starting tomorrow, I will learn the Qin method in the morning, practice swordsmanship in the afternoon, and polish my muscles and bones. No. With a nod of agreement, Ying Gao's gaze flickered for a moment, and he looked up straight at Wang Jian, saying, Teacher, there are quite a few books in this study. Can students borrow them? Sure. With a slight nod, Wang Jian warned, as long as you have time, you can come to the study, but in the study, you need to be quiet. Students understand. When Ying Gao left, his figure completely disappeared outside the porch. After the shadow wall, Wang Ben slowly walked out. Father, what do you think of third young master? Upon hearing this, Wang Jian took a sip of tea, pondered for a moment, and then spoke frankly, young master Fu Su, I have also had contact with him before. Although he is intelligent, he is still a child. Gongzi Jianlu, I have no contact with him, but compared to Chang Gongzi, he will not surpass me. But this third young master gives a strange feeling. Even though he is only 6.5 years old and still a child, facing him gives me a feeling of facing you and Meng Tian. Moreover, his purpose is very clear, he knows clearly what he wants, what he can get, and which channel he should get it from. At this point, Wang Jian looked up at Wang Ben and shook his head helplessly, saying, this study has been so long, and neither you nor Lear have mentioned flipping through the books in it. But just now, the third young master's final request was to be able to borrow the collection of books, all of which are enough to prove that the third young master is not simple. At this moment, Wang Ben was slightly surprised to hear Wang Jian's conclusion that the third young master had already become mentally sound and mature, no less than an adult. Of course. Wang Jian's gaze was deep and he said, moreover, the third young master is very good at dealing with people and has a proper attitude. Since moving into the mansion, he has been more conscious than Lier. And he fell in love with Lier at first sight, and their relationship grew day by day. We, Wang, may have been tied up with the third young master, but we don't know if it's a blessing or a pot. Father. Wang Ben suddenly spoke up and watched as Wang Jian walked back and forth. He smiled and said, according to Zhao Gao, in Wang Shang's study, the third young master threatened to become the most dazzling and bright young man in the Xianyang royal city. Ha! With a burst of laughter, Wang Jian couldn't help but feel emotional. Indeed, a newborn calf is not afraid of tigers. In the city of Xianyang, there are countless generations like Wang Li. It's so difficult to be the most dazzling and bright one. Father, the king has appointed 3 young masters to join the Meng family, Sima family, and our royal family respectively, with the aim of balancing our power and promoting the relationship between monarchs and officials. At the same time, we also hope to cultivate excellent young masters of the great Qin dynasty. After all, there is a lack of unparalleled generals in the royal family who can lead alone. This book is guaranteed to have 2 updates, and it is recommended to have at least 3 updates. End of this chapter.